Welcome to Introspection, the podcast about moving from grief to growth. I'm Amy Lindner-Lesser, your host. Introspection started out as a podcast about hospitality, innkeeping, and innkeepers. After about a year, I realized that my life and interests have morphed from hospitality to helping others navigate from grief and loss to growth and living. In this new version of Introspection, I will be talking about my personal experiences with loss, and there are quite a few, what I've learned along the way through my professional training, as well as from my coaching experiences. I'll also be bringing in guests to share interesting ideas. So grab a beverage, find a comfy place, take a deep breath, and listen in. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Introspection. I have as my guest today, Holly Strelzik, who is a death doula. I bet you're wondering what that is. I was too. So Holly, come on and tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got involved.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Amy. It is truly an honor to be here with you and to share my story, my information, however you want to look at it or take it. I'm going to start with how I got involved. I was in corporate America all my life and raised children for 25 years after that. Within that time period, I had a brain aneurysm, and the aneurysm left me for dead. And doing the work, literally doing the work to try to heal, was monumental. There were tremendous people that were helping me and supporting me, but it took many, many years. And so as the journey continued, I realized it wasn't a wake-up call. It was almost as if it turned into like a bolt of lightning that said something has to shift. Okay. So that's exactly what I did. I started to volunteer at the hospital, volunteering with hospices.
I'm doing this, but I'm not.
And became a Reiki master through hospice. They trained, which was an interesting thing for me. Didn't know anything about it, but it resonated with me. So as I was going into the hospital rooms and into the nursing homes, that's what they were asking for. It was a beautiful, beautiful service to provide. As I saw that the shifts, and not knowing that much about it in the beginning, I was really, really shocked that something was happening through me, whatever that gift was. As time went on, I became very comfortable with sitting at the bedside and being present when people literally were transitioning and dying, and being with their families. And I thought, there's got to be a way to bring this to everyone. And so I just continued, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do some Reiki work, but then, Reiki masters are a dime a dozen. And I thought, that's not it. It wasn't resonating. Started really thinking about, okay, what more, how much deeper can I delve? And did some amazing trainings in New York, some Zen Buddhist trainings, and something called the Art of Dying, which is an incredible process program that took us into all the different aspects of dying, whether it was learning how to prepare the family, to prepare a body, learning about all the different cultures and the rituals and the ceremonies and what that brings to the table. But the most important thing that I learned was truly how to sit back and just listen. And the listening was to the individuals, to their families, but also what was happening inside of me, because that gave me the ability to then, ask questions of them, let them really speak what was coming from their heart. Because at the end of the day, it was all about them being very, very peaceful in the transition. Death, just like birth, it's natural. We all go through it. And it's really up to us on how we live our life and in what we see and what we do to be able to embrace that experience, however sad it is for those that we leave behind. So anyway, continued the trainings and then just really started to work it. And working it for me meant networking and meeting people and talking to people, because nobody knew what a death doula was. Nobody understood, we don't even want to talk about death. So as a result of that, then then saw, oh yes, this is something that needs to be taken seriously. This is what we can provide, and it goes the gamut. I mean, if you think about birthing doulas, they come in, they meet with the family, the mother, they say, okay, well, how do you want this birth to look? We're going to make sure you have everything you need. And then they're in the delivery room, whether it's, still with a midwife or the doctor and delivering that child. And then it's the follow-up afterwards, checking in on mom, maybe making sure she, has all the good, healthy foods and that she's sleeping, which means, bringing her whatever she needs. So as in birth, the same as in death. We sit with the families, we figure out what is it that they want, how do they want this to look, and it's not always pretty. I mean, there's so much turmoil in families and stories, and at that time of death, it's coming up, and it's coming up with a vengeance. So we, again, the biggest skill we have is listening, because all of those different individuals in that family, if mom is getting ready to die and everybody says mom is scared, but in fact, mom's not scared. It's what they're going through. So we work on both sides. We also do all of that resource gathering and getting them prepared, whether it's they need hospices or they need the button or they need, elevator ramps put in the house. We can gather that. We can help find hospices. We vet them. And me personally, the organizations that I refer are the ones that I would use for myself. And that we can get into that story a little bit later, but that is how that comes about. But then also with the individual, whatever their wishes are, we have this incredible comfort care plan package that we go through with them if they want, if they're open to it. And it's to do things like, okay, how do you want your body handled, when you're really at the end and you're getting ready to transition and it's imminent? Do you want a Hershey's Kiss on your tongue every 5 minutes? Do you want classical music or Jethro Tull playing in the background? Do you want, lavender and roses, or do you want just nothing and still? So it's really to make that a beautiful experience, because it is. It's just transitioning somewhere else. Now, we don't know. Nobody really knows, but the goal is to be at peace. And then, of course, working them with the families and going through all of the grief, because grief can start the day that the person is born into a family, and it can just continue on.
I have to interrupt for 1 second.
Sure.
I don't know if you noticed the little chime just as you said, we don't know what happens. I think it was an answer. It certainly was to me.
Right.
That when we die, I don't say if, because we all die.
Yeah.
We're here inhabiting a body for a certain period of time, and we don't know what that time frame is.
Absolutely.
And yet, when we leave this body, I really believe that the soul continues.
Yeah.
In all of my experiences with people who are dying and after their death, in talking with their loved ones, it's obvious that loved one is there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many stories that I could share, and with different clients at different stages, different stages of their own life, whether they were young, whether they were older, whether they had Alzheimer's or any other dementias going on. The information that comes out, and it comes from that very, very deep, soulful place. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is. When do you usually, if there is a usual, start to work with somebody, and how do you get brought into a situation?
So right now our website is where a lot of the clients come from, and they do come from referrals as well. The usual is when it's almost imminent. Say a person has been discharged from the hospital, the family just does not know what to do. They're not getting what they feel is the amount of support that they need from the hospital, which is difficult. It's a very big, corporation, and it's very hard to find consistent support. Everyone means well there. anyway, so I'll get that call and they'll be looking for a hospice or palliative care or neither. And they'll want to get organized in their home. And so, I can help them get that set up. And then you really start doing the work, which is, okay, daughter number one, daughter number two, and son number three, let's gather together. Let's figure out what it is that you're looking for and what you need for your own self-care, because that's very important, because always that person in the bed, they're pretty peaceful already if it's at the imminent stage. So, then it really turns into the family. A lot of my cases come from children that live abroad and their parents are local or in another area, and they'll be looking for, hey, my parents are really getting older. They need to be watched out for. They'll have services already in place, but can you just help us manage it? So that's another big section of the population that we serve, is that those children that are away. And that's a great thing, because we're able to provide consistency for the elders, and they need it, especially when they're all alone in a location. All their kids are gone, all their friends unfortunately had already passed, so they have no one. So
you become a surrogate family member in
I
that.
become the other daughter.
Yeah.
And it's lovely work. It's such a warm pleasure to be with these people. So many nuggets of wisdom I'm constantly gaining, that's for sure.
And I'm guessing that occasionally you get called by the dying person themselves.
Yes. So that happens not all the time, though, because they're really afraid and they don't want to address it. And there's been a couple of cases where the individuals have come to me when they're very, very healthy and have gotten a first diagnosis and, are just getting ready to go into treatments or whatever, but know that this is not going to be something that's going to be sustainable. So I've had some really beautiful clients that had already put together legacy projects like a video for their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, and all those to come. I had one woman who had already put together her little recipe book, so she had what she felt was already organized, and wanted to make sure that her spouse was cared for after she left. So she was putting all of these things in place. How is my spouse going to clean out my closet? How is my spouse going to move this furniture? How are we going to pull this together? And that's very, very special, because what happens when we're going and planning, it also gives us a sense of control, but it also, I believe, facilitates the grieving process, because they're going through and they're talking with their loved one who's getting ready to pass, and they're creating more memories, and the closeness and the bonds become more together. And then there's cases where people have no money, no resources, nothing. And then it becomes about truly hearing them voice all of their love, concerns, regrets. The process can be really beautiful. And just by sitting and listening and engaging when appropriate, it just validates and gives them value. I mean, it's truly a blessing and a sacred experience to be part of.
It definitely is. To help somebody move from this world to the next, to have them heard, to have them have control and power in something that they don't necessarily have.
Right.
Certainly, you don't have a control of your diagnosis at that point, or your prognosis. Even the doctors who think they know everything really don't know anything.
No.
What they might be able to tell you what's going to happen physically next, but they don't know for how long.
Right.
Just talking from my own experience, my husband was in hospice care at home, and he was complaining. He was in a lot of pain, and I looked at him and I said, "It's okay." I love you. I'm going to miss you, but it's okay. You can let go.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he's like, I'm not ready to die. And it was a really tough moment and something that I'm sure I will never forget.
Yeah.
And he did pass 2 days later,
Wow.
but he needed to hear that. Even
Yeah.
though he wasn't really ready in his own mind, he needed to know that I would survive, our kids would survive, and he would live forever in us.
Absolutely.
But it's,
That's beautiful, Amy. Thanks for sharing that.
it's thank you for sharing what you do. I also know that, like him, there are many people who are not ready to go until the last possible second.
Yeah.
And some want to be surrounded by loved ones, and some don't. They want to be alone.
Absolutely. And that's what, our comfort care plan really addresses that. Do you want to be alone? Is there a special person you want with you all the time? Or is there someone that you do not want around? It is truly about honoring that, because that's going to bring that inner peace. And it is about the person that's dying. Yes, the family is affected, but let me tell you, it is so important that they have what they really feel that they need in that moment and through these moments.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's their life and their death,
Yeah.
and they get to be the choreographer.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
So, so tell us a little bit about some of the people that you've worked with. Give us a few examples, both of the wonderful ones and maybe even the more difficult ones.
So I'm going to start right now with what's happening in my life today. This is about grief. This is about being a doula, but being very emotionally tied. So it's a little tricky. My husband is young. He's 61 years old. He was diagnosed right in COVID, but they said it had been going on for a couple of years prior. He has Alzheimer's. Every day there is a little nuance that shifts, and it is the long goodbye, because it's okay, that's gone. That closeness, that ability to really communicate is gone. The person that had my back and knows me the best is drifting away. So as a doula, knowing what this journey is going to look like, and I do, because I've had many, many clients that have some sort of memory condition. I know what it's going to look like. I know that he's going to be curled up in a ball. And I know, hopefully by that time I will have said as many things that I needed to say where I knew that he could understand. But that's the tricky part, is him not being able to understand. So even though it's in my heart and I can speak the words, it's almost as if it's not going there. So in my profession, that's meeting them where they're at and being able to be at peace with myself. So that takes a lot of work. Okay.
And it's much harder when you are emotionally involved.
That's exactly it. I think one of the biggest things in this business is the self-care. And that doesn't mean, going for a massage or a manicure. No, what that means is, what is it that my body and my soul needs to care for myself so I can be present always. And it's not easy. There's certain days where I have practices where I'm meditating, or I'm reading, or I'm praying, or I'm walking outside and, and just in quiet. And then there's days where it turns into like, okay, so today is an exercise class, or this is going to be, you know, a massage day. But my point in telling you all this is that in order to be able to do the work and to be present and not be triggered, because there's a lot of life experiences that we all have that can send us over the edge. um, the self-care is top of the line. Some of the clients, oh my gosh, it's really been a blessing to be in the nursing homes. These individuals, they come, of course, you know this, from all different walks of life, have all sorts of experiences. The person that I'm seeing in that moment could be someone very different than they were 50 years ago. You know, maybe this person was considered to be mean and abusive, where who I'm seeing is their raw self. I had a woman one time, and she had 5 children, and they were all alive. Her husband had already passed, but she was all alone. No one came, no one visited. I was it. Um, she shared her, I'm going to say, visions of the other side. Every time I would come, she would talk to me about her relatives and where they were and what they were saying to her. And then she described it. And she described this beautiful white staircase. And at the top was a lattice gate filled with roses. And right behind the gate were all of her family members. And they were waiting for her. And she kept on telling me, they're waiting for me. Then one day she says, and your relatives are waiting for you too, but it's not your time yet. That, I have to say, brought such a feeling of awareness that, oh my God, yes, there's that other side, and they're watching and they're waiting and they're loving. Anyway, time goes on. Oh, it was incredible. And she every time I would go, you know, and it could be a week before I'd get to her again, but she would say, "Oh, yes, they're waiting." And she would talk about that. Anyway, when she finally did die, um, and people think I'm a little nuts for this, but us in this world understand it. I smiled because I knew that she was with all of those that loved her. That was a beautiful, beautiful experience. Um, let's see. There was one woman who had no one and had no money, and she could pay me in pairs, though. Pairs were important to her. So that's what she did. And I would visit with her a couple of times a week. We would sit, we would just talk. I would make sure that she had food and she had water and, you know, check in with her son. Um, but when she passed, I got a crate of pears, and it was as if she was handing them from the heavens. I mean, it was just such a beautiful thing. I have to say, it's difficult when I'm working with a family or individuals that are coming through, like, say, for example, a volunteer job at a hospice or something like that. I have had some difficult ones where I've had beautiful relationships with the people that were dying and terminal. And then when they would die, their families would just shut the door. So there was no way for me to say goodbye, for me to share anything with those families. But those are the types of families I talk about that really struggle. Now, these are the ones that are going through major, major grief. They might not know it at the time. They might have had angry relationships with the person that died, whatever happened. But the fact that they just shut the door, that's a lot of healing that has to happen. Um, there's been a couple of those, and that's hard for me when I'm not able to just say goodbye. Thank you for being able to be with your mom, your dad, or your sister, your brother, your child, because this happens too. Yeah.
Well, I'm
Young.
guessing that you formed such a close relationship with the dying person
Absolutely.
that it's hard, that
Yes,
you're constantly losing.
yeah. Yes, and then going back to the self-care, it is so important to be able to just be grounded and I really have a sense of just being blessed to have witnessed and to be with them, be present for whatever time I was, no matter what, you know, and many years of self exploration, I would say, is just having the awareness that these people have brought me a gift that through that experience, I'm able to then expound on whatever I can bring to the next person and to the next. Um, one time I was with a young woman. She was 36 and she had little kids, and that was tough. But she herself, the most beautiful, beautiful passing. And when I say that, what I mean is just the look on her face as she took her last breath, the love of her husband and her children surrounding her, because it's important for those children to be able to be there and say their goodbyes and hug and kiss and lay flowers on mom's body, and completely beautiful. I mean, these kids, I followed up with them for several months after, and yeah, they were sad and they missed mom, but they would talk about her, and those memories would make them laugh and make them giggle. And that's instrumental to our healing, is being able to do that even at a very young age. It's
Mhm.
okay. It's okay.
And it's a way of making death normal
Yeah.
instead of this horrible thing that's so out of our realm of living,
Right.
as opposed to it's a cycle. And just as everybody is born, everybody dies.
Absolutely.
Obviously, there are some deaths that are harder than others. Um, you know, with bad relations, with anger, with a sudden never having spoken about the possibility, whether it was an
Mhm. Yeah.
accident or a suicide, or
Right.
something that just comes out of the blue and blindsides you. But it is all part of life.
Yeah.
And um, I know for me, when my grandfather died, he was the first death that I ever experienced.
Mm.
And I experienced it really like 10 feet away,
Yeah.
or 10 miles away. My
Yeah.
father lived around the corner from us, and I was 6, and my family thought that they were protecting me by not telling me. And, he was the most important person in my life at that time.
Yeah.
I adored my papa.
Yeah.
And, I learned about it after they came home from a funeral. I stayed at home or went to a friend's house to play. I don't even remember where I was, but I wasn't permitted to go. And then about a month later, a friend told me she knew my grandfather died before I did.
Mm.
Um, there was a lot of stuff that took me many years
Oh, yeah.
to forgive my parents and my grandmother for keeping me out of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, I know for me, I was terrified of death.
Yeah.
My parents must have known to keep me away from it because it must have been this horrible thing, only to realize that it's not,
Yeah.
that.
Yes. I mean, yes, we miss them and we cherish their memories, and, and then not to be confused, but not everything is perfect. Maybe those relationships weren't always perfect, but there's such um, value and validation to know that, okay, I have a choice in how I say goodbye. If I say goodbye, if it makes me too sad to say goodbye, then maybe I don't go. Maybe I just hold it in my heart and pray to that, for that person, whatever. But it's given that choice is very important. I have a 5-year-old grandson, and a couple of years ago, he lost his great grandmother,
Wow.
and he's literally running around the kitchen island doing laps. Hey, Grandma. Yes. Grandma Fiona died. Oh, wow. When did that happen? And he just starts talking about it and talking about it. And they took him to the funeral, and he was able to say goodbye. Um, the next couple of months later, he had an animal that died. He just embraces it, loves it, misses it, but holds all those little memories in his heart. I'm a firm believer in making sure that everyone has access to all of those feelings and all those losses. It's vital for our world that everyone is able to address that, because if not, all those feelings of anger and fear, they manifest in violence, and like you just said earlier. So I'm very passionate about knowing and understanding how important it is that everyone is able to work on themselves. And what does work on themselves mean? It means being able to be aware that there's something down there, deep down inside, whether you're coming from an abusive relationship or situation, or whether you've just watched tons of violence. Maybe you lived in an urban area. I see this as an area of great need, especially when we see shootings and at the schools, and the people taking their own lives. I mean, why is that? Why is that? There's stuff. There's lots of stuff. And I think as a society, it's up to us, up to people like us to talk about it and to normalize it. So, when someone is feeling just completely out of control and flailing from whatever, from, a loss or violence or anything, that they know that there are people out there that can help them facilitate through that journey and to help them heal, and whatever that looks like for them. We can only offer.
We can only offer, and hopefully they will accept only what they can take. Right. And it will change as people go through life.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're all evolving, and we're learning that there are lessons for us in everything, in the good things and the bad things, the things that we don't necessarily think of as lessons.
Yeah.
But they're there. And you have started something out of all of your grief work.
I have started something.
I definitely want to give you some time to talk about your center and what it is and what's growing and your dreams for it, and even how people can help.
Yeah. So throughout all this work, and when we talk about transforming, right? I have just written my story. It's called Transforming Pain into Purpose. I'm in a chapter in this book which highlights, different individuals that have taken their life experiences, and I'm not going to say making lemonade out of lemons, because that's too much of a cliche, but it's being able to have the foresight and the wisdom to know that, oh, horrible stuff happened to me. Horrible. But this is where it's bringing me today. And honest to God, I'm thankful for it, because if I didn't have it, go through it, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And, let me just say, I'm not perfect. I am in no way perfect. I am not the most intelligent person in the world. I haven't graduated from an Ivy League school. I haven't read tons and tons of books, but I know what I know. And it's through experience, and it's through, being validated through my trainings and my certifications, etc. So this year we launched Center for the Heart. Center for the Heart is a nonprofit. Well, we're in, filings for the status for a nonprofit, but it is my new corporation that is dedicated to serving and ensuring that everyone has access to end-of-life and grief support. Doesn't matter if you have 1 penny or if you have billions of pennies. I don't care. Doesn't matter if you're, homeless or living on Park Avenue. Doesn't matter. The most important thing is that you are given the options of having a peaceful passing, basically. It's been a passion of mine since I started the work, and, looking and seeing and meeting with all of these individuals who are in such great need, who just, whatever life experience brought them to me has been validated by the fact that, yes, everything you're saying, Mrs. that's 80 years old, coming from Romania and never was allowed to tell her story. And all I did was say, absolutely write it, and hand you a journal and a pen to the individual who is 75 years old, big stoic man. And as soon as I walk into his room, he's afraid that I'm going to hurt him. And what does he share? His sexual abuse as a child. So there's so much work to be done. And the fact that I can just listen and then do whatever needs to be done, for me, is the greatest blessing in the world. So the center is a nonprofit, or soon to be a nonprofit, and it's here to serve. And it's also here to raise funds for all terminal life-threatening diseases. And the one that I'm highlighting right now is Alzheimer's. So we're in the middle of working on a fundraiser, and I have to say that that's larger than life. So I'm trying to relax with that and just follow the process. It's going to be okay. It's going to be what it is. If we raise $1 million, or if we raise $10,000, it's more money than the Alzheimer's organization had, right? But the ultimate goal for the center, and this is why I called it center, is that I want to develop homes. And these homes are to be sprung up in all different areas. Rural America is where I see the biggest need for people who have nowhere to go. They come, it's a nurturing, loving, secure, healthy, I'm going to use the word healthy environment. And by that, I mean delicious food, beautiful surroundings, warm, comfortable, safe, and to be able to take these individuals in. Again, doesn't matter if you're homeless off the street, doesn't matter if you come from Park Avenue. They'll be small. Each home will be small, but I want them in as many places as I can. I know it's a big endeavor, but my wish and my hope is that we can start small in New Jersey and then just keep building on. And Kentucky is going to be my next location because that's where I'm from. And I really want to be able to bring that service because I see such a need. So that's what we're doing. It's very exciting. It's a lot of work. But what's interesting for me is that as my husband's illness has progressed, I have taken on everything. And through that, I didn't realize how much mental power was behind everything that he did. I feel as if my brain has expanded. And when I say expanded, I mean it's like, okay, now I understand XYZ and this and this and this. So for me, the center of the heart is a mix of smart practices and, dotting all my I's and crossing all my T's, and cultivating and bringing together a community of doulas and grief workers that as people come to the center for help, I can then turn around and disperse. And I just have to tell you, the people that I have in my community are amazing, all the way from incredible healers with different modalities to doing, I'm going to call it the nuts and bolts of doula work, which is getting the resources together, et cetera, et cetera. Then we have doulas that are trained, certified, and practice medical aid in dying, which is in New Jersey as an option for people. And they need to be cared for and loved as well. So we have a whole mix, and then we have grief workers coming, and that's the vision. That's what I'm doing. That's what I said to someone the other day. I said, if you build it, they will come. And let me tell you, honey, they are coming. Like, oh my God.
What you're doing is so needed, and the timing couldn't be better.
Thank you. Thank you.
Especially that you're doing it in the midst of your own grief and caring for your husband. I mean, one of the things that we didn't talk about with dementia is that it's a double death. That or more than a double death, because as you mentioned, things that were there yesterday are not there today. So it's like it's dying so slowly.
It's very,
And, in front of you, and you're living it, and yet he's still very much alive.
right.
And,
Absolutely.
fortunately or unfortunately, dementia does not kill people. It's
Yeah.
a secondary thing that comes up that will eventually kill somebody.
Yeah.
But they're not the
Yeah.
person that they were. And
Yeah.
so you're grieving a life that you had that will not be anymore.
Right.
And then we'll have to grieve again.
Yeah. And you know what? I have to say that it is a true practice in patience, patience for myself, patience for him. And what that's done, and again, I'm not a perfect person, and my kids would attest to that. But
Nobody is.
right? But there's a tremendous amount of compassion that has even come forth stronger. Um, because at the end of the day, and this is one thing that I think about a lot, is that I want to give as well as I know that someone will probably give to me in my time of need. And it's the golden rule. It's whatever you want to think it is, but that's exactly what it is. It's like, I live my life trying to just completely listen to my heart center and know that, you know what? You need to treat these people exactly how you want to be treated. And that is with unconditional compassion, no judgment, safety, warmth, and nurturing love. Yeah.
I don't even know how to follow that up. Those are like such beautiful values to live our life by.
Thank you.
It's ironic, maybe not. The word patience has come up for me. We're taping this a little early.
Yeah.
We're taping in February for an April airing. Um, and this past week, the word patience and being patient has come up no fewer than 40 times for me.
Wow.
I feel like, my impatience is kicking me in the butt.
Yeah.
I did a Facebook Live about patience. I talked about patience, actually, Facebook Lives about patience. And I related it to grief also.
Absolutely.
That,
Absolutely.
you know, many of us have heard of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's
Yeah.
5 stages, and
Right.
David Kessler added his 6th stage in. They really weren't for grief. They were for the dying person and the
Yeah.
stages of
Right.
the emotional going through of dying. However, we've taken it and, of course, co-opted it for grief. And people tend to think that it's a nice, neat staircase, and you just go through one stage, then you go up to the next stage and the next stage. That's
No.
baloney.
Right.
Do that.
Total baloney.
Much more like a whirlwind or a spiral where
Yeah.
sometimes you're going up, sometimes it's orderly, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And we get impatient, and our friends and family get impatient with us.
Right.
And they think we should be somewhere else in our grief journey. And it's patience is so neat.
Exactly. Exactly. And to take that even a step further is to think about this. You're driving down the road and there's a guy that's screaming at you because he wants you to go faster. We have no idea what his story is. We have no idea.
Yep.
And so again, patience, no reaction, compassion, let them go. If someone says something to you really off color, say, hey, I'm sorry, but you can't talk to me that way. But yeah, I get it. You can go ahead and go. The patience, I think, is the entrance to really loving ourselves with the utmost,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because here we are ramping up. And, when you talk about it coming from grief, yeah, because, okay, why are you impatient? Well, you're impatient because so and so is not moving fast enough to get ready, or et cetera, et cetera. What's that all about?
Mm-hmm.
Me, right? You know, I need you to do this because I need to be in control, and da 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 da. Okay, well, take a step back. What's the worst thing that can happen? Oh, well, the shower won't be taken, or you won't be able to have your first meal of the day. That's okay. That's all right. Nothing's gonna happen.
You'll have a second meal
Right.
with the next meal, hopefully,
Right.
if you've got food.
Yeah. So it's just about, understanding, and it's just awareness. It's like, okay, it's delving deeper. And then and this, Lynn, is that what happens is that once you get that level conquered, then it goes even deeper. So then there's the harder experience that you have to be patient for. It's like, okay, this is really uncomfortable. Am I going to make it through? And you do.
You
And you
do.
do.
What's the saying? 100% of the things you've survived 100% of your most awful moments to this point.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
you've survived, and
Exactly.
hopefully you've even thrived.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I think that and the patience have been lessons that I'm getting out of grief, my own grief journey, which I know will never end.
Right.
Um, I remember when my husband passed, thinking about things that would normally have gotten me very agitated because I had a short fuse. I would blow up and then it was over.
Yeah.
But I would say, is it going to matter in a year?
Mhm.
No. Is it going to matter in a month? Probably not. Is it going to matter in a week? No. Is it going to matter tomorrow? There were very few things that made it past the hour.
Right.
The hour of the fuse.
Right.
And when you look at things that way, it's easier to just take a deep breath and move on.
Right. And as a result, we're trying to take our deep breaths and move forward with, kindness and compassion. And what does that do? That helps heal the world, because even if we, can get out of that, impatient frenzy and smile to the person who's having a really bad day, that shifts, so it's the whole rolling effect.
The truth.
Yeah. Thanks.
Holly, thank you so much.
Oh,
This has been just an absolute joy in talking with you, as it is every time we talk.
thank you, Amy. I mean, it's been a pleasure to be here. I appreciate taking the time and being able to share what I have to say. And please, contact the Center for the Heart if you have any questions or need any support. We're a nonprofit, and if you have a volunteer opportunity that you might be interested in, or if you want to be a contributor, we are so thankful to have anyone on our team and in our community. God bless you all, and have a peaceful day.
Thank you. And if somebody is in search of a doula for themselves or a family member, how would they either reach you or find somebody in their area? Because obviously you're not, you're in New Jersey, you're not necessarily traveling
Right.
across
Well,
the country weekly.
Well, and that's an interesting point. Yes, I can definitely help also in other locations. I have a whole network, and I've worked in San Francisco. I've worked down in Florida. I've worked in Virginia. I've worked in Kentucky, in Georgia. So I have contacts everywhere. Contact the center. If I can do anything for you, I will. What you'll see is there'll be a link. You can go in, you can schedule 15 minutes. You can send me an email, giving me a little bit about your experience. Schedule, we can talk, we can figure out what you need, how I can help, even if you are somewhere else, even if you're going into Canada or to Australia. Yes, I have contacts.
Wonderful.
Thanks for asking that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And thank you for sharing everything. I wish you complete success with the Center for Heart.
Thank you.
And with all of your work, I'm in awe. And I hope that one day I can be as good a person as you.
Oh, sweetheart. You're beautiful.
You exude love, compassion, and that's what I aspire to do, and hopefully the rest of the world.
Amy, thank you very much. I'm humbled by that statement. Thank you.
Thank you. If you liked what you heard on this podcast and want to hear more, please follow us and tell your friends. You can also find me on Facebook at Amy Lindner Lesser, Grief to Growth Life Coaching, and on LinkedIn at Amy Lindner Lesser. Thanks again.